This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Baruch Shechianu v'kimanu v'gyanu lazman hazeh. This will be the final shiur on our Haftorah series, Tavshin Ayin Tes, Tavshin Pei, where we have the zchus to go through now 79 Haftorahs of the year, the final Haftorah of the year, the Haftorah of Simchas Torah, which we read Parak Aleph of Sefer Yehoshua. But interestingly, if you look in the Gemara Megillah, Daf Lamed Aleph, the Gemara says, Yom Tov ha'achrain on Shmini Atzeres, Korin kol ha'bachar, mitzvahs v'chukim, and the Haftorah is Vayihi kechalois shloimai. It was when Shloimai concluded. L'machar, and on the next day we read V'zois ha'bracha, and the Haftorah is Vayamid shloimai, which is a continuation in Sefer Malachim. Interestingly, the Haftorah mentioned in the Gemara for Simchas Torah is not the Haftorah that we read. So Tosfos picks up on this. Tosfos says, Yesh mekaimos, in some places, shenagu lahaftir b'vayihi achrei mos Moshe. Tosfos cites our minhag of leaning from the beginning of Sefer Yeshua as the Haftorah for Simchas Torah, but Tosfos says, V'shibashu, it's a mistake. Shaharei hashas ino imer kain. This is not what our Gemara says. Says Tosfos, V'yesh shomrim shav haigoin tiken loimer vayihi achrei mos Moshe. Some say that Rav Gaon enacted that we should read the beginning of Sefer Yeshua. But we don't understand. Why would Rav Gaon change from what the Gemara says? The Gemara says we should read Vayihi kechalois shloimai, and we don't read that. We don't read Malachim. We read Sefer Yehoshua. So the Mesehech Chochma, at the very end of his Sefer, in his Hadran, right after V'zois HaBracha, says a brilliant explanation. He says very simply, the Gemara is referring to when they did not read the whole Torah every single year. They had a 3-year cycle. Now let's ask ourselves, if they have a 3-year cycle, why would you lein V'zois HaBracha every year on Simchas Torah? If you have a 1-year cycle, I understand why you lein V'zois HaBracha. That's where you're up to. The Simchas Torah celebrates the completion of the Torah. But if Simchas Torah is not the celebration of the completion of the Torah, it's just a Yom Tov, it's part of Shmini Atzeres, and we're not even up to V'zois HaBracha, then why would we lein V'zois HaBracha? Well, explains the Mesehech Chochma, since Shmini Atzeres is a unique day where God says, don't bring any karbanos, I just want to enjoy your company, I want to be neneh from you, I want to show my love to you. So the appropriate laning is V'zois HaBracha, where it says, Af choivev amim, God forsook all the nations of the world and He showed His love for the Shvatim, for Klal Yisrael. So therefore, even though you're not completing the Torah, the correct laning is V'zois HaBracha. Likewise, the Haftorah of Vayihi kechalois shloimai discusses the great love that Klal Yisrael has for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So in V'zois HaBracha, we talk about how Hashem is praiseworthy, and in the Haftorah that the Gemara suggests, we talk about how the Rebbeinu Shalom has separated us and considers us praiseworthy. This mutual relationship where we make God chativa achas and God makes us chativa achas. This would be the correct Haftorah for Simchas Torah in a 3-year cycle where you're not necessarily completing the Torah every year. But says the Mesehech Chochma, we're not arguing on the Gemara, we're not disagreeing with the Gemara's legislated Haftorah. We just have a different process of Kriyas HaTorah because we learn the Torah every single year. And therefore, every year we finish the Torah on Simchas Torah. So therefore, we learn V'zois HaBracha every year on Simchas Torah, not only because it demonstrates the uniqueness of Klal Yisrael, but V'zois HaBracha is the last Parsha in the Torah. Furthermore, the appropriate Haftorah now is not what the Gemara says. The Gemara's Haftorah was appropriate when they had a 3-year cycle. So the Haftorah selection was that which demonstrated the uniqueness of the Jewish people. How in the Parsha we talk about how Klal Yisrael is unique, and in the Haftorah we talk about how Hashem has made us unique, and therefore that would be the correct Haftorah. But now that we have an annual cycle, a yearly cycle, and every year we finish the Torah on Simchas Torah. Therefore, the appropriate Haftorah annually is the beginning of Sefer Yehoshua, which A, is a continuation of the conclusion of the Chumash, and B, it indicates that we're not allowed to add on we're not to be moisef to the Torah, and a Navi cannot change it. We read Lo Yomor Sefer Torah Mipicha. So therefore, since we have a different process than the Gemara, that is why we lay in a different Haftorah than the Gemara. The Gemara is talking about when they had a 3-year cycle, but we have a 1-year cycle. And now that we have a 1-year cycle, and we finish the Torah every year on Simchas Torah, our appropriate Haftorah, as legislated by Rav Gaon, it is not a shibush, is to lay in the beginning of Nevi'im. Hadrin alach, Haftorahs Hashana, v'Hadra Chalan. May all the words of the Nevi'im watch over us. May we be zoicha to see all the words of the Nevi'im come to fruition. Shekol devarav layashav reikam. We say tzur kol ha'olamim, tzadik b'chol ha'doros, hakel haneman, ha'omer v'oiseh, ha'medaber u'mekayem, shekol devarav emes v'tzedek. Neman atahu, v'nemanim dvarecha, v'davar echad midvarecha, achar layashav reikam. May we be zoicha to see the fruition of all the Nevi'ei ha'emes v'hatzedek, agat yar, agamar toiv, agan kvitol, apiskotava, and hadra chalon, haftaras hashana, v'hadra chalon.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.